Gemini, in a few days, someone's mask will fall, and you will know everything. You've been sensing something off, haven't you? That strange, almost imperceptible tension in the air, the feeling that someone's words don't quite match their energy, the way you smile in conversation, but feel a quiet unease in your chest. You haven't said it out loud, but inside, you've wondered if someone in your world is hiding something important. This message comes to you not to frighten, but to empower, because in just a few days, the illusion will crack, and what's been hidden behind the mask will finally reveal itself. This is not a guessing game or a vague warning. The universe is orchestrating a moment of clarity just for you, a revelation that will change how you see one specific person in your inner circle, and more importantly, how you see yourself. You, Gemini, the master duality, the lover of truth even when it stings, are about to witness something deeply personal unravel before your very eyes. Your intuition, often dismissed by others as too sensitive or overthinking, is about to be proven right. If you've ever felt gaslit, confused, or emotionally drained by someone close to you, now is the time to stay open. The signs are converging. Your soul has been whispering the truth all along, and now the cosmos will speak it loud. If this message already touches something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share and subscribe so that others walking this path with you can awaken to their truth too. The mask is about to fall. Gate 1. The cracks in the mirror. How Gemini's mind detected the lie before the truth arrived. Gemini, your brilliance lies not only in your intellect, but in the incredible, often underappreciated sensitivity of your mind. You are ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, perception, and thought. This means you don't just hear words. You notice the pauses between them. You don't just see people's actions. You sense their motivations hiding beneath the surface. And lately, something has been whispering to your awareness. A tension, a dissonance, a quiet warning that someone in your orbit is not who they appear to be. You might have brushed it off at first. Perhaps you told yourself, maybe I'm being dramatic, or I'm just overanalyzing again. After all, Geminis are often told that they think too much. But the truth is, your mind doesn't just think, it detects. Like a radio picking up frequencies others don't even know exist, your inner radar has been alert. And now, the energy has shifted. The cracks in the mirror are becoming visible. Think back over the past few weeks. Has there been someone whose tone of voice changed ever so slightly when you mentioned a certain topic? Someone whose enthusiasm felt a little too rehearsed? Or perhaps someone who seemed overly interested in your plans? Not because they care, but because they're trying to control, manipulate, or stay one step ahead. Gemini, this isn't paranoia. This is perception. Let me tell you the story of a Gemini woman named Celine. She was charismatic, radiant, always surrounded by people. Yet she had one friend who seemed deeply invested in her every decision. This friend gave constant advice, always offered support, and always knew the latest updates about Celine's life. But over time, Celine began to feel tired after every conversation with her. Drained. She couldn't explain why. She's always been there for me, Celine told herself. She means well. But then the signs began. Celine overheard her friend speaking about her in ways that contradicted everything she claimed to feel. Private information was being shared. Her confidence was being subtly undermined. Compliments were delivered with an edge of competition. What looked like friendship Gemini was something entirely different. And when the mask finally fell, Celine didn't feel surprised. She felt validated. Because her intuition had known the truth long before her mind could prove it. This is where you are now. You are standing in that space between suspicion and confirmation. Your soul has already voted. Your body might already be responding, feeling tight around this person or restless in their presence. Your thoughts, quick and nimble, are circling the inconsistencies they've begun to notice. Why does their story keep changing? Why did they flinch when you mentioned something innocent? Why do they suddenly act overly sweet after seeming cold the day before? These aren't accidents, Gemini. These are cracks in performance. And here's the key insight. The person in question doesn't just wear a mask. They've studied you. They know your emotional language. They understand the rhythm of your moods. and they've tailored their false self to suit what they think you want to see. This is not just a matter of a white lie or a personal secret. This is strategic, a manipulation crafted to keep you emotionally compliant, energetically available, and mentally confused. Why you? Because you're generous. You give people second chances and third and fourth. You see the good in others even when they show you red flags. You believe in potential. And while this is one of your most beautiful gifts, it also makes you a target for those who fear being seen for who they truly are. You see, a Gemini's mind is a mirror, but not just any mirror. It's a mirror that reflects truth back to people, even the parts they want to hide. And not everyone is comfortable standing in front of such clarity, but the truth cannot be delayed any longer. The mask will fall, and you will see what's been hiding beneath it. It might be painful. It might even shatter the story you've told yourself about this relationship. But more than anything, it will free you, because here's what they didn't account for: your growth. They still see the Gemini you used to be, the one who second-guessed their instincts, who tried to keep the peace at all costs, who stayed in connections long after they stopped feeling genuine. But you've changed. You've been evolving quietly. You've been listening more deeply to yourself. You've been reclaiming your right to honor your gut feeling, even if it doesn't make logical sense, even if no one else understands. You don't need to confront this person right away. In fact, you may not need to say anything at all. Sometimes the greatest power is silence, the kind of silence that lets them reveal themselves. Watch their eyes. Listen to their deflections. See how they respond when you assert a boundary or ask a direct question. The mask will slip, and when it does, you will not be caught off guard. You will be ready. Gemini, the universe is not trying to break your heart. It is trying to break the illusion that's been keeping you small. This isn't about punishment. This is about power. Your power. The kind of power that comes from finally trusting your own inner voice above the noise, above the manipulation, above the performance. You have always been the truth seeker, even when your voice trembled. And now, truth is arriving for you, not as a whisper, but as a lightning bolt. And when the moment comes, when the mirror shatters and the false image fades, you will not only see them clearly, you will see yourself more clearly too. Wiser, stronger, more whole. You are not just discovering who they really are. You are remembering who you really are. Gate 2, the emotional labyrinth. How Gemini's intuition was gaslight. Gemini, one of your most misunderstood superpowers is your knowing, a rapid, intuitive flash that cuts through noise like a blade. You process not just information but subtle signals, micro-expressions, changes in tone, unsaid meanings. But here's the trap you've likely fallen into. Someone around you has made you doubt this gift. Over time, they've learned exactly how to make you question your feelings, your hunches, even your memories. This isn't coincidence. It's emotional gaslighting. At the core of this manipulation lies a deep truth. Your intuition has been correct all along. That gnawing discomfort when they change the subject too quickly. That strange guilt you felt after an innocent conversation. The way your mood dropped after being around them even if nothing bad was said. These were not emotional overreactions. They were your system trying to protect you, sounding internal alarms long before your mind could explain why. Let's pause here and look at how emotional gaslighting typically works. Imagine this. You express concern, perhaps a comment they made that felt off. They respond with, "You're being too sensitive," or "You always read too much into things." Suddenly, you feel like the one who's wrong. Like maybe you imagine the whole thing. That is the moment when your inner compass starts spinning, no longer pointing to truth, but to confusion. And Gemini, confusion is the most dangerous place for someone like you, because you thrive in clarity. You need transparency, honesty, and energetic flow in your connections. When someone keeps you in a state of subtle uncertainty, never quite sure if what you felt was real, it slowly breaks your trust in yourself. And once that happens, they can control your perception of reality. This is how the mask stays in place. Not through brute force, but through tiny daily rejections of your truth. Let me share the story of Kai, a Gemini man whose intuition was repeatedly invalidated by a long-term partner. Whenever he brought up something that felt off, she'd laugh and say, "You're always so dramatic," or That's just your crazy Gemini brain again. At first, he believed her, but over time, Kai started keeping mental notes. Small inconsistencies, messages that didn't align, moments where her reactions felt staged. Eventually, he discovered an entire double life she was living, one he would have never uncovered if he hadn't trusted the inner whisper she kept trying to silence. You may not be facing something as dramatic as a double life, but even the erosion of emotional safety is enough to deeply wound a Gemini soul. You are not a surface-level being, no matter what the zodiac memes say. You may be quick-witted and lighthearted, but beneath that is an ocean of emotional depth and a fierce commitment to inner truth. And this is why it hurts so much when someone treats your perception like a flaw. Gaslighting doesn't just manipulate your current emotions. It rewrites your emotional memory. It makes you look back on situations and reinterpret them to the lens of someone else's version of events. You might remember a conversation that upset you, but then think, maybe I misunderstood. You might feel pain, but dismiss it with, maybe I'm overthinking. Slowly, your internal map begins to blur, and that's exactly what the manipulator wants. But here's the beautiful turn in your story. Your clarity is returning. In Gate 1, we spoke about the cracks in the mask. Now, in Gate 2, we turn inward to the parts of you that never bought the lie. Even when you doubted yourself, a piece of your soul remained firm, watching quietly, waiting for confirmation. And now, as cosmic energy shifts, your mind and intuition are aligning once again. The fog is lifting. What was once blurred is now coming into sharp focus. This restoration of clarity is a spiritual event. It's not just about one person or one betrayal. It's about reclaiming your inner compass. When you stop questioning your instincts, you begin to trust the rhythm of your own truth. And once you return to that rhythm, no one can manipulate you again. Here's something important to understand. People who gaslight often target bright minds like yours. Why? Because you're perceptive, because you're curious, because you notice things and that threatens their control. But in trying to dim your light, all they've done is awaken a deeper fire within you, a fire that says, no more shrinking, no more second-guessing, no more minimizing your intelligence to make others comfortable. You're done playing small for people who can't handle your truth. Gemini, this phase of your life is a reclamation. You are taking back ownership of your thoughts, your voice, and your trust in yourself. You are releasing the need to explain your feelings to people who don't respect them. And you are beginning to recognize that someone who genuinely cares about you will never try to invalidate what your heart knows to be true. From now on, when something feels off, you'll believe it. When someone's energy feels performative, you'll step back. When your body tenses around a person for no obvious reason, you'll listen. Because your mind isn't too much. It's your protection. It's your ally. It's your truth detector. And now it's online again. As we prepare to enter Gate 3, we will explore what happens when the mask finally falls. Not the suspicion, not the doubt, but the moment of undeniable revelation. What will you feel? What should you do? And most importantly, how do you walk through that door of truth without losing yourself to the pain it reveals? You've come this far, Gemini. You're not turning back now. The truth is no longer something to fear. It is your liberation. Gate 3. When the mask falls, the shocking moment Gemini sees everything. It doesn't happen slowly. There is no gentle unveiling, no graceful fade. One moment, you're looking into the familiar face of someone you trust. And the next, you're staring into the eyes of a stranger. That is the nature of revelation, Gemini. It is not polite. It does not wait until you're ready. When the truth finally breaks through the illusion, it crashes into your life like a wave, merciless and undeniable. You always sensed it was coming. Maybe you didn't know exactly what the truth would be, but something in you whispered, pay attention. And now, that whisper becomes a roar. The mask slips, and in its place, the truth stands naked, undeniable, and irreversible. What you see in that moment will not just shock you, it will reconfigure you. Gemini, your mind moves fast, but this moment will feel suspended in time. It could come through a message you weren't meant to see, a slip of the tongue that cracks open everything, an expression that betrays hidden resentment. a confession delivered in anger, or even a moment of silence. So loud, so revealing, that it says more than any words ever could. When it happens, your first reaction may be disbelief. Not because it doesn't make sense, but because it suddenly makes too much sense. All the inconsistencies you brushed off, all the moments you swallowed your discomfort, they rush back into your awareness like puzzle pieces snapping into place. Your body feels it first. The drop in your stomach, the chill on your skin, the rush of adrenaline as the veil tears open. And then comes the emotion. Shock. How long has this been happening behind your back? Anger. How dare they? Sadness. How could they? But perhaps the most painful of all, self-doubt. Why didn't I see this sooner? You may ask yourself, why did I let it get this far? Gemini, pause here. Because that question is a trap. You did see it. You saw it the moment your intuition tightened in their presence. You felt it in the silences that weren't quite neutral. You sensed it in the backhanded compliments, the strategic withholding, the way they watched you instead of seeing you. What you experienced wasn't blindness. It was betrayal of your own self-trust. And now, that trust is coming home. You must remember this. When someone wears a mask, it's not your fault for believing them. It's their burden for creating a lie, so convincing it fooled even your brilliant mind. But the moment the truth appears, you are no longer a victim of their deception. You are the witness to their undoing and the guardian of your own healing. Take a breath, Gemini. Feel the pain. Name it. Let it rise and move through you like a storm, not to drown you, but to cleanse you. What's collapsing now is not your reality. It's the illusion that was built around you to keep you confused and compliant. And it is collapsing because your soul refused to keep playing the role written for you in someone else's script. Do you want to know what the most powerful part of this moment is? It's not that you saw the truth. It's that you believed it. Finally, you stopped explaining it away. You stopped justifying their behavior, hoping they were just going through something. You stopped blaming your own sensitivities. You looked the truth in the eye and said, I see you. That's alchemy, Gemini. That's transformation. That's the beginning of freedom. Let's go back to that Gemini woman I mentioned earlier, Celine. When her friend's mask slipped, it was through a message screenshot sent by someone else. Just one sentence. One comment made behind her back that unraveled months, years of false friendship. At first, she felt like she couldn't breathe. But then something wild and wonderful happened. She laughed. Not because it wasn't painful, but because the absurdity of the lie was finally visible. And she realized how much energy she had spent managing a relationship that was never built on truth. That laugh was the beginning of her liberation. You may not laugh right away. You may cry. You may go numb. You may isolate. And that's okay. Everyone processes truth differently. But what matters is this. The mask is off, and now you get to choose what happens next. The person who manipulated you may try to deny it. They may attempt to twist your emotions again, to cry or plead or blame you for not understanding them. Don't fall for it. The moment someone uses your empathy against you, they reveal the deepest level of their deception. You don't owe them forgiveness right now. You don't owe them understanding. You don't even owe them a response. What you do owe is loyalty to yourself, to your clarity, to the Gemini within you who tried for so long to make sense of the senseless. And now, dear soul, you can stop trying. This moment is sacred. It is painful, yes, but it is also holy, because in the ruins of false connection, you will find the foundation of your true self. Your inner child, your intuitive mind, your compassionate but fiercely discerning heart, all of them are gathering now, integrating, rising to the surface as one voice. I know what I know, and I will not doubt it again. What comes next? You'll feel lighter. It might not happen immediately, but it will come. With the mask on, there's nothing left to figure out. The energy that was once spent tiptoeing, wondering, analyzing, it returns to you. You'll find yourself laughing again more freely, sleeping deeper, thinking clearer, not because the situation didn't hurt, but because you're no longer entangled in a performance. And as this clarity expands, so will your vision for what you truly want in your relationships: honesty, presence, mutual care. not perfection, but realness. Gemini, this is your rebirth. In Gate 4, we'll explore what happens after the truth, how you reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and begin attracting relationships that meet your new, higher frequency. Because from this moment on, the old you is gone, and in their place is someone who sees everything and still chooses love. Gate 4, picking up the pieces, how Gemini reclaims their power after the reveal. There's a silence after the storm, Gemini, a space where everything feels still, raw, unfamiliar. The mask has fallen. The truth has been seen. And now you're standing in a landscape that looks nothing like what you imagined. The roles have crumbled, the illusion shattered, and you are left not only to process what you've learned about them, but what you've rediscovered about yourself. This is not a moment of weakness. It's a moment of re-entry. You are stepping back into your life as a version of you that no longer needs to second guess. The Gemini who no longer tiptoes around others' expectations. The Gemini who knows their own heart, even when it's been bruised. You see, after the mask falls, something even more powerful happens. You start remembering your boundaries, not the rigid walls others have accused you of putting up, not the avoidance patterns you've used to escape emotional chaos. No, real boundaries, soul boundaries, the kind that say, my energy is precious, the kind that whisper, not everyone gets access to my mind, my kindness, my trust. Because Gemini, you give deeply, you share freely, you forgive easily. But now, it's time to discern wisely. And this starts with reclaiming the space that was stolen from you. The mental real estate that was occupied by second-guessing, the sleepless nights where you replayed conversations, the emotional bandwidth that went into keeping the peace. All of that space, it belongs to you again. Let's be honest, Geminis are known for being mentally agile, adaptable, charming. But not enough people talk about the exhaustion that comes from always being the one who adjusts, who understands, who keeps the dynamic going even when something inside is quietly breaking. That version of you, the one who carries other people's emotional weight as if it's your own, doesn't have to lead anymore. Because now you've seen what happens when you betray your intuition to maintain a connection. It fractures you, and the cost is simply too high. So what does it look like to reclaim your power in real time? It begins with the simple, radical act of not explaining yourself anymore. You do not need to justify your distance. You do not need to defend your discomfort. When your energy pulls back, it is because your soul is spoken, and that is reason enough. Next comes the emotional inventory. Ask yourself, what did I give in this connection that I never received back? Not as a way to blame, but to understand. When you see the imbalance clearly, you no longer romanticize the connection. You see it for what it was, a sacred classroom. Painful, yes, but filled with lessons that will now form your emotional armor. Many Geminis fear the stillness that follows separation. You may worry that walking away from a masked relationship means you'll be alone, unsupported, misunderstood. But what if I told you that the emptiness you feel now is just space being cleared for something real? Because here's the truth. When you protect your energy, you attract people who respect it. In this sacred period, you may find yourself seeking solitude, and that's beautiful. Let your mind decompress. Let your heart breathe. Don't rush to fill the void. Don't chase closure. If the person tries to reach out, manipulate, or explain, know this. Clarity doesn't always need a conversation. Sometimes the absence is the answer. Let me tell you about Leo, another Gemini soul I worked with who, after a similar experience, spent weeks in what he called a silent reconstruction. He didn't journal obsessively. He didn't call all his friends. He just listened to himself. Every morning he asked, what does my spirit need today? Some days it was a walk. Other days it was tears. Sometimes it was deleting old messages or muting someone on social media. Each step, though small, was a declaration. I am returning to myself. And that's what you're doing now, Gemini. Returning to the part of you that knows the difference between chemistry and consistency, between charisma and character, between attention and genuine care. And in this return, you will feel your center strengthen. You will feel your spine straighten. not out of defensiveness, but out of clarity. There's a quiet dignity in knowing that you no longer need anyone's permission to trust your own soul. What's next? You rebuild, but not the same way as before. This time, you build with you at the center. You choose relationships that feel nourishing, not performative. You stop being impressed by people who sparkle in public, but dim your light in private. You gravitate toward those who ask, "How are you really?" and wait to hear the answer. You may find that your social circle changes, that some people quietly fade away because they were never anchored in truth to begin with. Let them go. The people who are meant to walk with this new version of you will recognize you, and they won't be threatened by your growth. They'll celebrate it. Gemini, your healing is not about becoming hardened or closed. It's about becoming so self-honoring that you no longer tolerate anything that dishonors your truth. And as you practice this daily, through the choices you make, the thoughts you feed, the conversations you engage in, you begin to realize the most powerful thing about the mask falling wasn't the truth about them. It was the truth about me. You are not gullible. You are not too trusting. You are not weak for loving deeply. You are wise for choosing to heal rather than retaliate. You are strong for staying kind in a world where people weaponize intimacy. You are rare for being willing to rise, not with bitterness, but with clarity. In Gate 5, we will dive into what this new era of clarity looks like, how your relationships evolve, how your intuition sharpens, and how you begin attracting only those who mirror back your truth, not your wounds. The Gemini who once questioned everything is now becoming the Gemini who knows. Gate 5, the rise of the authentic Gemini, attracting only what mirrors your truth. Something extraordinary happens when a Gemini stops explaining themselves. The entire frequency of their life begins to shift, not suddenly, not with fireworks, but quietly, like the way the air feels different after a storm has passed. There's clarity in your lungs, stillness in your chest, and for the first time in a long time, your energy is yours again. Gemini, now that the mask has fallen, now that the performance has ended and the truth has arrived, you are no longer the same. You are no longer chasing answers from people who gave you questions. You're no longer searching for clarity in the fog of someone else's emotional theater. Instead, you're choosing to live from a place of resonance. This is a rebirth. Your mind, once tangled in "what did I do wrong?" now says, "What do I need to feel right?" Your heart, once stretching itself to be understood, now whispers, "Do they deserve access to me?" Your body, once anxious and confused around certain people, now serves as a compass, guiding you toward what soothes and away from what siphons. And that changes everything. Suddenly, you find yourself repelled by situations that used to intrigue you. Conversations that once kept you hooked now feel hollow. Certain people, once magnetic, now feel energetically sticky, draining. Why? Because you're vibrating on a different frequency, the frequency of truth. This is where your Gemini gift becomes sacred. Your duality is not a curse. It's a compass. You've lived in both worlds, the world of illusion and the world of knowing. You've danced with charmers, with manipulators, with emotional shapeshifters. And now, with the mask removed, you know exactly what to look for, or rather, what to feel for. You're not just smarter now, you're sharper. The Gemini who once hesitated is gone. In their place is someone who understands that love without safety is not love. That presence without honesty is not connection. That performance without depth is not intimacy. And so, your standards rise, not from bitterness, but from healing, not from fear, but from self-awareness. Let me tell you about Adira, a Gemini who went through her own truthquake. After years of being subtly manipulated by a partner who wore a mask of spiritual wisdom, she woke up, literally, one morning and could no longer pretend. The mask hadn't even fallen yet, but she felt the dissonance so deeply, she couldn't unfeel it. She didn't wait for evidence. She chose her peace. Weeks later, the truth came crashing in texts, confessions, hidden dynamics, and instead of spiraling, she stood. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she had already begun the process of realignment. Adira later said something that struck me deeply. When I started treating my energy as sacred, the universe started removing people who weren't. And Gemini, This is your new phase, attracting from wholeness, not wounds. This is when your natural magnetism becomes mystical. Because here's what most people don't understand about you. Your light doesn't come from how much you speak. It comes from what you see. And now you see clearly. You're no longer afraid to trust your perceptions, even if no one else validates them. You're no longer afraid to walk away, even if it means being misunderstood. You've learned that being misunderstood is far less painful than being misused. From here, your relationships will start to reflect your inner upgrades. You'll be drawn to people who feel calm, not chaotic. People who don't need to impress you, because they're too busy being real. Conversations will feel deeper, more nourishing. Eye contact will feel safer. The old patterns, the hot-cold dynamic, the mind games, the energetic push and pull, will begin to dissolve. Not because they don't exist anymore, but because you no longer match their vibration. This is your reward, Gemini, not just a revelation of the other person's mask, but the revelation of your own light. For a long time, you wore your own mask too, the mask of the understanding one. The I'm okay mask, the I'll figure out later mask. But now, you're done performing. Now, you're choosing authenticity over approval, truth over tolerance, and peace over performative love. That is your true magic. You're no longer entertaining the idea of convincing someone to love you correctly. You're magnetizing people who already do. You're no longer decoding half-truths. You're speaking full truths. With your words, your energy, your silence. You're no longer hiding your discomfort. You're honoring it as a message. This is not for me anymore. And yes, there may be moments when you miss the illusion. When the mask was still up, at least you had hope, right? But hope rooted in a lie is not hope, it's delay. You're not losing something real. You're letting go of something false to make space for what's finally aligned. Gemini, you have always been the messenger, but now you are also the message. Your life is becoming the proof that people can rise from betrayal with softness, that you can be discerning and still open, that you can protect your peace without hardening your heart, that you can experience a painful truth and still choose to believe in love again, just not the masked version. As we prepare to close this journey in the next section, we'll reflect on what it all means, on how this season of unveiling has not just shown you who they are, but reminded you, finally, fully, who you are. You are not what they took from you. You are what you reclaimed. And from this point forward, only what is true can find you. Conclusion, the Gemini unmasked. Your truth is your freedom. Gemini, you have walked through fire. Not the fire that burns everything down in rage, but the fire that reveals, that peels back illusions and shows you what was always true beneath the performance. You questioned, doubted, grieved. You picked up the shattered pieces of trust and examined each one, wondering where the fracture began. And now, standing on the other side, you see something remarkable, yourself. This journey was never really about them. Not about the person who wore the mask. Not about the lie or the betrayal or even the pain. It was about the awakening of your soul's inner compass. It was about finally listening to the voice you quieted for too long, the one that whispered, "You already know." And now you do. You know that your energy is sacred, that your mind, fast and brilliant, is not a burden. It's your protection, that your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's wisdom. You know that you were never too much. You were simply trying to give light to someone who was never ready to live without shadows. The person whose mask has fallen, let them go with grace, with truth, with peace. Because your hands are no longer here to hold what was false. They are open to receive what is real. This moment marks the beginning of a new chapter, one built not on charm, but on clarity, not on guessing, but on knowing. From this point on, may every connection in your life feel safe, clean, alive. May every word spoken to you be honest. And may you never again question the voice within that speaks before the mind can catch up. You are not broken, Gemini. You are being revealed, just like the truth you always carried. And this time, you don't need to wear any mask to be loved. Your authenticity is enough. Your honesty is radiant. If this message found you at the right time, take a breath. Let it settle. And when you're ready, Share what resonated with you in the comments. Your truth may be the mirror someone else needs.